Welcome to season 2 of No Shelf Control, the podcast with books, booze, and banter, hosted by authors for readers, because let's face it, we're all bookworms at heart.
This season, we're chatting about book-to-screen adaptations and trending book talk books. I'm Lindsey Sparks.
And I'm Lindsey Pogue. Grab a beverage, kick back, and enjoy the show.
So welcome, everybody, to season 2, episode 25 of the No Shelf Control podcast show. Like wherever you listen to it, it would be called something different or watch it. So for this book adaptation episode, we read Jennifer Niven's, I think that's how you say it, I don't know, YA book, All the Bright Places, and watched the Netflix movie, which is also called All the Bright Places. All the Bright Places, not All the Right Places.
Ooh, that could have a whole other meaning there.
All the Right Places. That's a different book. But something interesting that we have not talked about at all that has nothing to do with this book, but that I heard on another podcast that is book talk related, is that apparently rumor has it, TikTok is getting into publishing books themselves. Wow. Which could mean a big change in terms of like the books that are recommended on TikTok and what we do with that, because
it's all going to be TikTok beneficial for TikTok.
Book. I mean, they control what goes viral. I mean, it's not like some happy accident like people believe. So
interessante.
Yeah.
I feel like it also, I did not hear that. I guess I can't really say I'm surprised.
You will. But it was on a podcast I know you listen to, so.
Yeah, okay. So that is very fascinating. And I actually have a couple ideas for some books to read by indie authors specifically on Book Talk.
Would love to pivot away from, because I was thinking like,
we haven't loved a lot of the Book Talk sensation books.
I feel like we're like frequently let down. And also I just want to like put my money where my mouth is, I guess, and like support more indie authors than I do. So
so I totally agree. So we'll talk about that offline, because I have some ideas. I'm sure you have some ideas. For sure. So that's super exciting.
Yeah.
There was something else I was going to say that I am now totally blanking on. So
okay.
It's actually about this book that we're talking about. I was thinking as I was reading and then watching the films that we have once again lied to our readers, because we're like, we're going to be reading uplifting YA, and I'm like, this is the most depressing
I had no idea what
read
this was
in
about,
so long. Yeah. So anyway, I'm not saying it's a bad book, but I'm just saying I apologize. We did not really do our research, and we were thinking, light in YA and it'll be fun, and that is by far the complete opposite of what we're going to be talking about today.
And like if you continue listening to this show, you're definitely going to hear everything that could possibly be a trigger warning. But if you think you want to read this book before we spoil everything for you, definitely read your trigger warnings on that first. And they're not easy to find. I mean, unless you look up reviews, and then it's pretty clear what exactly.
A lot of mental health stuff. I mean, suicide, like a lot. Yeah. So just go into this knowing, we didn't. So just go into this knowing that this is a minefield.
It's a heavy book.
Yeah. I mean, that's not to say it's not a good book, but it is a very, very heavy book. And so reading it and watching the film was super fun.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
Left me sunny.
Sunny times.
Yeah. All right. Okay,
Anyway.
but before we get into all of that,
yes,
which I think is going to be a really interesting conversation today, tell me what you're drinking.
I just have water with a little leftover, what do they call it? Something IV. Anyway, it's the stuff I've been getting from Costco.
You're like flavor booster.
Yeah, it's like this
thing?
one is hydration. I have a energy one because, I wake up super early, so I'm ready for bed at noon. So I have the energy one. But this one is the hydration because I'm trying to be better about my hydration. So it's the same travel thing I always have, and it is just room temperature water. It's literally not exciting. Moving on.
I also have water. Mine is flavorless. I mean, I guess it's water flavored. Which I know people debate about whether or not water has a flavor, but I like it.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Anyway, and that's probably what's going to continue on for the next 4 months. I
don't know about you, but it's like really hot here, so I don't really feel like
the weather here has been strange, but I feel like you could say that about any year within the past 5 years. But it was like still 30-degree nights, not 30-degree, but in the 30s degrees nights like 3 days ago. And it's like somebody flipped a switch. And now in 2 days, on Friday, it's going to be 80 degrees here.
Oh, I don't have my phone. I was going to look and see how warm it is today. I bet you it got into like high 70s, low 80s today. And I love the sunshine. And so for me to be like, it's actually really hot is I'm gonna saying something. So I'm like, I did my walk today instead of at like 1 o'clock. I did it at 10 because it's been so warm. So it's
Now if we're still in the like it's been a few days of like not frigid wind. So we're still in the like basking in the fact that the clouds have parted.
Well, I heard about this whole like El Nino thing this year. And I know that doesn't necessarily affect you. I don't know if it affects you, but it only sort of affects California. But we have like crazy winds, but you walk outside and it's hot. You know what I mean? So I think the El Nino stuff is more like Caribbean area or in like Southern California, but they're saying it's like the first El Nino in, 10 years, whatever the hell.
Attribute ours. Because it's been so weird for years now. I just attribute our strange weather fluctuations to just climate change.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
I have no idea we don't know what it's going to do. We're going to have to wait like decades for it to settle. I know.
It's crazy because, California is a state of drought like all the time. And then we had so much. So I don't know, when you went up to my grandma's house, how at the ranch, how we have in the, like down the hill, we had like that lake pond thing. So I don't know how much water was in it when you were there, but the last few years that I've gone, it's been empty.
Oh, like really?
There's like
there was definitely water in it when I was there.
So it's been nothing. I mean, it went from like a large puddle to like a nothing, till you could like see ruins and stuff underneath of like old boats and like all this weird stuff stuck in the mud because it's been like completely empty, like for the first time in years.
Yeah.
I went this last weekend completely full, the fullest I have ever seen it. Just from our crazy like rain weather. So, I mean, it water as far as the eye can see. And so it's just so weird to like, that's right there. It's just, that's what our, the last 2 or 3 months brought us. And now it's freaking hot. And now I bet you everyone's like, oh, wildfires and drought. And I'm like,
man, it's not going to save you at all.
Yeah. So anyway.
Bummer.
Yeah, let's talk about climate change for sure, because that's what all this is. But anyway, so sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you. Were you asking me what I am
working on?
Yeah. I feel like I've been in a bit of a whirlwind. We had, as you know, I've had a lot of family stuff going on. So I have not been like here so much. But I have been focusing. I haven't been writing much in the last few weeks, but I have been really focusing on the things that I can do in like spurts of work time, And so one of the things that I did is I got my Ream set up, which for those of you who have not heard about Ream, you will, because we both are using it or will be using it.
It's at the top of my to-do list. I just have zero time right now.
Yeah. So it's essentially a Patreon, but it is for authors. It's created by authors for authors and readers. So it's
so like the back end structure is just
so much easier to use and conducive to what we're doing. Yes. So anyway, I got that set up. And I've been getting my Patreon peeps who have been supporting me for years because they're amazing. They're going over there. And so that's really exciting, but I'm also it's new. It's a new platform. So I don't know what I don't like about it until I'm in the midst of it. And I'm like, wait, you can't do that. Oh, that's weird. Oh, wait, it's charging me that much. Like all these things,
That text was,
I've been texting. I'm like, what the fuck? So, but there's a lot of things. There are a lot of things that are frustrating about it. I'm not going to lie, but it's amazing to be able to email Michael or whatever. Oh, I hit the team. It's Michael and the team. And you get emails back almost immediately, and almost every frustration that I have or question that I have, because I'm very nice about it. I'm not like, oh, this sucks, blah, 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 because I know that it's a new platform. I mean, it's still in beta, right? It's not even like completely, like there's a waiting list for it.
Yeah.
So, but it's really cool because I email him, and then he emails me back, and he answers every question, and on his list of things that are rolling out in the next 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, almost all of those things are already on that list. So it makes me feel like this is awesome. There's somebody on the other side who knows and cares about what we want. So that's been really helpful. It's just a learning curve, you know? So that's one of the things that I've been focusing on. And I will share this with you because it's so pretty. I got this bad boy done.
Ooh-wee.
So it's all the Ruined Lands books in one paperback. So it's freaking huge. It's over 800 pages, you guys. Like,
you should hold that up next to your Forgotten Lands one.
Oh yeah, I should.
Here, you're just like giant tomes.
Hold on, let me grab it.
Oh man. It's so big she has to grunt.
Yeah, so they're massive. My wrists hurt.
Holy moly.
Okay. So here's both of them. Ruined Lands and Forgotten Lands. They're both huge, as you can see.
They're monstrous.
Like I said, over 800 pages of awesomeness. So I'm really excited about that. You want to know what's the most exciting thing? I ordered 20. Okay, so you know how I've been really super frustrated with my paperback quality. I did so much research trying to upload this paperback file to Ingram, to Barnes & Noble, to Book Vault, to Amazon. I already know Amazon will do it, and I already know the quality of Amazon. So I was trying to these other things. The problem is because it's so big, actually Barnes & Noble and Ingram and Book Vault. The only reason why Book Vault, I would have had to pay to get a different size cover. So I didn't do that one. The other two, they don't even make books that thick. So that wasn't even an option. So I was stuck with Amazon again. Oh, and Drafted Digital uses Ingram, so I couldn't do that. Anyway, long story short, you know how much I'm trying to get away from using Amazon. So I put in an order because I had to buy two. I bought myself two from Prime as like I'm a consumer. I bought myself two Prime copies of Ruined Lands twice, and they both came print. It wasn't even the binding or anything. The printing was completely off. Like there were lines through it, and it was weird, and there was like all these problems. I'm like, this is what my readers would get. Like I was just totally horrified. So I sent them back, returned them. But I was like, I don't have any other option because during all of this, I'm trying to upload it and print it other places, and nobody would do it because it's so thick. So I was like, okay, I guess I just have to order my copies, my like author copies, because I want to send my Patreon people or my Ream people now. And I got a shipment, Lindsey, of 20 books, 25. Nothing wrong with them.
What?
I know. I'm like, I even told this, I have anxiety opening these boxes right now. Like I'm like sweating because I don't know how bad they're going to be. But there's like random little things, like there's weird printing things here and there, but nothing like what, I've been up against. So I'm like, I'll take it.
Nice.
So I have to say, like, I don't know what the change is. It was probably a fluke thing. It doesn't mean I'm going to just stop trying to publish or print, paperbacks elsewhere. But in this particular instance, my hand was forced, and it actually worked out. So anyway, I just thought, that was a win for the team. I don't know.
Or it had to be a relief, especially because you didn't have any other options.
I really didn't. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, really? This is my luck. I have no other options. And then I got them, and I was just very excited. So, and you saw how pretty the books are. So they are very pretty. Yeah. I'm like, they're taking up a lot of space. So in June, when I put them out, I'm going to be excited because they're like taking up my entire hallway right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, how about you? What have you been working on?
Well, I have a release day tomorrow or last week when this goes out. So depending on, basically whenever people listen to it, I will have had a release day on Thursday, which is tomorrow / in the past. So I'm excited about that. It's the second book in the Fateless trilogy. which will be exciting to get out. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to get my butt in gear in terms of, because I'm serializing the third book, and I wanted to have something up on my Patreon because I have not transitioned to Ream yet. But I wanted to have like, I'm going to write up the prologue, just so I have something up, because I put it in the back of the book that was like, you can, read the serialized format by becoming like a monthly subscriber. Yeah. But I'm not actually going to do the first episode until the middle of May, because that's when I have an open serial slot. Because I finished one of my mid-month serials this month. I wrapped it up. So I was like, oh, I have to like fluster, like just hurry and get this done. So, but a prologue is an easy thing to write. So that'll be quick, but it'll be a nice place to be like, okay, welcome new people. In a few weeks, you'll have a whole episode. So I'm excited about that. I have been working on Rise of the Revenants, Atlantis Legacy, book 6. Still, I am on, it's going to sound like I wrote a lot more than I did. I'm on chapter 31. I realized as I was like writing it, I was planning on using one of my serials, which is All World Online Looking Glass, which was supposed to be like a bridge between Atlantis Legacy and All World Online. They're in the same universe. And I was like, oh my gosh, this has to actually be in the book. I was going to have it be like it's already written, the serial is, but it's from a slightly different perspective, which only makes sense if you've read book 5. And I was like, oh crap, this has to be in the book. Like the story is too related. I can't have it be like if you want to find out what happened, like read the serial. So anyway, so that pushed me forward like 6 chapters. Like bonus.
Or you mean because you realized you hadn't included it?
Because I realized I needed to include it.
And you hadn't. Yeah.
I just got to add in 6 extra chapters that I had already written. Like, oh, great. This feels good.
Nice.
So yeah, I have like a quarter of the book left to write, and technically I'm supposed to be done this week, but I will not be. So hopefully I'll be done next week, which is one of my revision weeks. That's okay. This is normal.
It is what it is. You can only control what you can control, right?
And I cannot control my release date. That is locked, set in stone. So yeah. My poor beta readers might have a shorter period. Oh, well, sorry.
Hey, now, wait, that's me.
It's not a super long one, so.
I'm just kidding.
This isn't a Sarah
Wait,
Lyons
when are you
Fleming
planning
book.
on seeing that? Because I have a beta thing I'm reading right now. I mean,
the 15th. The 15th of May.
Okay. All
right. Anyway, and then I think that's like my main things. I've been doing like a lot in the background with Kickstarter. I have like everything set up. I have set up all my tiers and everything. And I am just like in the process of entering it into Kickstarter itself. And so I'm excited to finally get the pre-launch page up for that, so I can start sharing all the stuff that I have for it with people, so they have somewhere to go when they think it looks cool. So that's what I'm excited about with that. And I don't know, there's like so many little things that I've been working on. But
can I just tell you, like, granted, I don't do it, so it's easy for me to be like, oh, it's terrifying. Maybe I'll adopt this practice in the future. But you sit there and you talk about like you're doing these serials or whatever. And so with my subscription service, I have like, one of the reasons why I'm doing it is because I want it to help me like routinely write instead of like procrastinating and doing all the businessy things. Like that's one of the, like, I want to force myself to make it a part of my actual routine. You know what I mean? So that's one of the reasons. And I know that I can, when I have deadlines, like I know I can write and I know I can sit down and get it done. But, and it's one thing like sharing chapters as I write them which is what I've been doing with Patreon people over the last year or two. But like you put out once or twice a month. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know you have, Yeah. So twice a month you put out like a chapter. And I've talked to you about this before, and how for you, it's like you put out a chapter and it's essentially like done. Like you might have to alter something later, but for the most part, like that is the chapter. And as you move forward, that's the story and you're good. I so don't write that way. And so I'm terrified because like I have 17 chapters of Skies of Fire that I could share with my peeps. I'm not going to right away because the more I write, I want to be able, I already know I'm going to go back and change things in the beginning, like not change them, but add things, you know? So it's like, I am posting things, but I'm posting them slowly because I know myself. Like I know that I'm going to keep going to the, like, for the more research I'm doing, like, oh, I should have mentioned something about that in chapter 3 or 4 or whatever. So like for me, like I just want to say this because I don't know how this is like how different our brains are, because for you I'm like in awe because you're like, oh, I can just write a chapter in a week and get it out next week and it's all good to go. And for me, like I'm doing that once a month. I'm posting at least, it's going to be more, but at least one chapter from Skies of Fire, and then the Born of Sea of Salt, you know, that
now when you say a chapter, do you mean like a chapter or do you mean like an episode, which could be
I mean like
multiple
a chapter.
chapters? Like I mean like
a chapter. So I have 2 stories I'm working on at the same time, and I'll be releasing one chapter of each a month. The first chapter that I have done for Born is almost 4,000 words. So we can just call it like an episode, you know, like, I mean, it's not like they're short chapters or anything. Yeah. In fact, I'm probably doing them in chunks because I want to do like both perspectives as we go, you know, but I don't want to promise that. Obviously, I don't want to put myself in a corner, especially because like this is sort of new for me. But anyways, long story short, I just want to say that as I'm doing this, like I'm hyperventilating because I feel like I want people to know, like, this is a very rough draft. Like this could change. And for you, you're just like, that's it, it's done.
Well,
and I don't work that way. I guess
put a disclaimer. I always put a disclaimer in it when I post it that says
I did that too,
that it hasn't been edited and that some details may change.
Yeah, I've done the same thing.
And then I have, so I have, like, while I've been writing something, one time I had to swap out to a character for a different character. This is in The Last Vampire Queen. I had to swap out 2 different characters for many reasons, but it just made sense. And I didn't change it in the episode. Well, I did eventually, but some people had already read it. So then I just had to make a note in the next episode that I had swapped those characters.
So that's why you make those big changes.
Yeah. So I leave notes throughout. Like if I know something's going to change, I'll leave notes, or like for my work in progress chapters, which is a practice that I'll be discontinuing when I finish with this book. And then I'm just going straight to serializing everything, which is to me a different process.
Yeah, I don't serialize. No, for sure. Yeah. So it's very different.
Like to me, serialized is slightly more finished. Like my work in progress chapters, I do not read through after I brain vomit them out. I like go through when I'll like go through and I'll like fix things that are underlined or something if it's like blatantly the wrong word or that kind of thing. But I don't actually read it. I don't do anything like that. But when I do my serials, I write the rough and then I read back and I do a full revision that adds in like details and emotion and stuff like that. So, but there's, between, depending on which serial it is, it's between 2 and 9,000 words. So we're not talking, it's a single session at my computer reading through, revising. It's not like a big.
No, I know, but it's just like, even for me, like, I don't know, it doesn't matter. We don't need to talk about this right now, but I just like I'm so back and forth. Like I'm the linear writer, but like there's always something that I need to, this is awesome here, but I can't just put it there. I have to like, leave breadcrumbs. So then I go back and then so it's just different. And so this is going to be a really interesting process for me. And so I was just saying, like, I props to you for like, I'm curious to see how it goes. Yeah. But
I have to say, like, for my work in progress chapters for Rise of the Revenants, the chapters that have been shared with my patrons, which is all of them, but maybe like 8 or 10 chapters, I completely forgot that she had a dog. And so it's like every single one at the beginning says, add Tila, add Tila, add Tila, add Tila.
Yeah.
So that's a note to self that I have to go back and fix. So everybody gets to see that.
That's fun though. Anyways.
Anyway, yeah. So
yeah. So we clearly have a lot a lot of changes going on in our worlds right now. So
yeah,
this is welcome to our banter. Sorry, I know the people are like listening probably to talk about
I know, and we had to postpone. We were supposed to have a meeting on Tuesday, 2 days before we're recording this, and we had to postpone it to next week. So usually we would have gotten all of this out.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't have been totally tangenting. I'm making up that word right now.
Yeah. Anyway, what are you reading?
So I might have mentioned it last time, but I'm much farther. So I bought this book on a whim, Defender of Walls. This is that like gritty historical fantasy, slow burn series that I fell in love with because it's very historical fantasy, like my kind of stuff, like, yeah, but it's not fae, it's not magical, it's just straight up like historical, like fantasy. Yeah. And I feel like there's not enough of these. So anyways, I bought this whole series. So this book I've read, and I'm not even going to pull up the third one because it's on my nightstand and I'm almost finished the third book I've read. And then there's a fourth one that I purchased that is in the same world, but not the same series. And I'm still loving it. And it's called The Kingdom of Walls. And it's by Tanya Bird. And she's an Australian author. And she's very sweet. And I think she thinks I'm a freak because I've been tagging her in a gazillion things. But there you have it. If you
and you said it's a slow burn romance, but there's a strong romance thread.
Well, the whole thing, is romance thread, but it's not like, it is like behind closed doors sort of deal. So it's very, it's not, but there's so much sexual tension that as me, you know me, like, I'm like, I like my romance, but I don't even care because it feeds all the little, it's like timeless romance. Like the things that you don't find a lot of other places, you know? And so overall, like, absolutely love it. And they're easy, fun reads, and they're gritty and they're fun. And so if you like the Forgotten Lands or My Ruined Land series, then I think you will like these because it's kind of like the same thread. There's not like magic systems and, fantastical things. It's like just good old like historical fantasy, dystopian stuff. So anyway, I recommend it. And I'd have, other than the audiobook that we listened to, or the book we listened to or /read for tonight, I have no like ebooks or anything. I've just been in this world devouring all of these. So, what about you?
I am back to The Hollows by Kim Harrison. Still on Pale Demon.
I love it.
I was in a big podcast binge for a few weeks there, so I didn't get much audiobook listening to, but I think I always go through phases. It's like waves. And then I like consume all of the possible podcast episodes that there are for me. And now I have none left. So back to my audiobooks.
There you
go. So, yeah, that's it for me and my reading. Yeah. Should we switch over to the book discussion?
Oh, I mean, I don't say that begrudgingly, but I'm just like, here we go with the hard stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So, spoiler warning, we're going to spoil this big time. So you should stop listening now if you do not want to be spoiled for all the bright places. That being said, if you are still listening, I'm assuming that you would like to be spoiled. So, the big trigger warning is suicide, like suicide of a character.
Multiple characters contemplating.
Yeah. As well as suicidal thoughts.
Bulimia, like a lot of things.
Bipolar disorder, depression, like all kinds of stuff. So
child abuse.
Oh, yes. Child abuse.
Lots of things.
Okay, so I'm gonna read the description and then we'll get into the questions. So
I just want to say this because I'm gonna forget, but I was thinking about this today because I've been so busy. I've only today could watch the movie.
Oh, I watched it today too.
Yeah. And all I can think of is like, I'm just bringing this up because I've been talking about reverse harem the last like 3 episodes and how I need a break because there's so much sex, and I'm like, I think I need more reverse harem after watching.
I know, like
book.
wash my brain out.
Major sex in my life.
I know.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. The New York Times bestselling love story, you think, about 2 teens who find each other while standing on the edge. Theodore Finch is fascinated by death. Every day he thinks of ways he might kill himself, but every day he also searches for and manages to find something to keep him here and alive and awake. Violet Markey lives for the future, counting the days until graduation, when she can escape her small Indiana town and her aching grief in the wake of her sister's recent death. When Finch and Violet meet on the ledge of the bell tower at school, 6 stories above the ground, it's unclear who saves whom. Soon it's only with Violet that Finch can be himself, and it's only with Finch that Violet can forget to count away the days and start living them. But as Violet's world grows, Finch's begins to shrink. So that's it.
And so there you have it.
Yeah. So first off, what format did you read?
I listened to it.
I also listened to it.
And the narration was good. Yeah.
Yeah. I listened to it at like 1.3 or 1.35 or something like that.
It's actually a very long book. I didn't realize that.
Yes, it was. And the narration was slow paced.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, meh. Okay. So did you know, I feel like you already addressed this, but did you know anything about this book before reading it?
I really didn't. I'm like stretching back. It's hard now because all the covers have the movie cast on it, but I want to say that I saw this book cover for so long and it had all the Post-its on it.
Yeah. It's got like 4
so
Post-its
long, and I was always so curious about it, and that's what made me want to read the book. I had no idea what it was about. I just knew it was like this big book that had been around forever, and it kept popping up on everywhere, the cover, and it was intriguing, but it never seemed to be something that I would necessarily like go buy. And so when they made it a movie, which was a year or 2 ago, and then we were trying to figure out what we want to do, I was like, oh, that would be a good time to try it out. And I should have read the blurb or those.
I don't even feel like the blurb
doesn't even, yeah.
I personally feel like I feel hoodwinked. I mean, to be fair, I didn't read the blurb before I started. I was like, I'm just going to go into this blind.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that, and I wish I hadn't. But even now, reading this blurb, it doesn't, to me, suggest, I don't know,
as heavy
that one of the main characters is going to kill himself.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really interesting because I know this is one of your questions later, but it's very interesting because the book is very much about Finch and very much about Violet and how both of them are severely unstable as far as her sister she was just in a car accident and her sister died. She lived. So she has survivor's guilt. Right. And then Finch, it's actually kind of unclear. Like, I feel like he keeps talking about like he goes through these episodes and these things. And at first I thought he had a terminal illness. Like, it took me a while to figure out that
I was like, is this, at first I was like, is this some sort of like fantastical thing? Like he has like a mystical thing? Like, and then I was like, wait, is he in a coma? Like, what is happening?
But it's very much about both of them. So I think it's very interesting when we talk about the movie, how different it is.
I believe that what he actually had, and this is based on a lot of reading I did afterwards to see what other people thought of it, because I was like, I have to know what other people thought.
In the book it says bipolar, but
and that's what like some reviews I read were like, this is the best depiction of bipolar disorder that I've seen, whereas a lot of other people are extremely critical of it. So
that's what's so interesting is, I mean, working with at-risk youth, like I've very much, I could like see it like it was happening. Like I could totally put myself in the position, or I guess not really in that position. That seems very naive thing to say, but like working with people like that, like I could almost picture it as like one of the youth, you know, like I could imagine it was somebody standing right next to me and putting on this brave face and acting like everything's fine. And I know in my gut that they're full of shit, you know, like all of that felt very true and very real. I think the reason why I was so frustrated with this book because, and I think it still is reality, but it doesn't make it better, is it his support system was disgusting.
Yeah.
Like he had nobody except for Violet and her family in the book that cared really. Like he had a sister or sisters.
And he had his counselor, but his counselor really bothered me in terms of like the counselor was like basically like, you're not going to do something stupid because I am not going to be able to afford the lawsuit and like all this stuff. It's like,
yeah, that was rough.
Are you kidding me?
There was like a lot of, and that's why we're saying like there's heavy stuff. Like, yeah, there's suicide, there's thoughts of suicide, there's bipolar disorder, there's child abuse, there's so many things, but it's so much more than that. It's like the parents even like make me sick to my stomach. So there's like so many parts of it. His mom is not even a part of his life, and she acts like, oh, it'll all be fine, whatever. And she just
this totally is just what he does. It's like his
dad abuses him. Yeah. And I'm just like, all of it is just so like the most important person really in his life and his family side that actually cares about him is his sister.
Yeah.
And even she is like in her own world doing her own thing. So I don't know. It was hard. It was a hard book to read. And then when I found out I had to, like, after I was reading the book, and then that's when I'm like, wait, we have podcasts? I was like, God, I still have to watch this movie. And I was like,
I know. I think I put it off too because I know. I was like, I don't want to watch it. I didn't want to watch it. I didn't want to go through that again. And I don't know, because like you go through once Finch goes off into his dark place, you kind of lose his perspective. His perspective in the book disappears because before that, it's both of their perspectives. And then Finch gets into his like depressive state, and then he's no longer a voice that we hear.
Yeah, that's true.
And then we go through him vanishing, and then Violet finding his body, or I guess Violet figuring out where his body is, and then
because his mom didn't have the guts to do anything to try and find him.
So she watches him. She describes what he looks like when he's pulled out of the water, how it doesn't even look like him. I mean, it's like, and then you experience her afterwards, her emotions.
More survivor's guilt.
And like, I don't even know, like, if this is supposed to be like, leave you feeling hopeful. Like, I don't know. I was like, this is just depressing. This is not. I was like, I get that she like moves on. She like her life is changed for the better because of him, even though he killed himself. But I don't know. I don't know what I understand that the author lost someone she loved.
I was going to ask because
it was very much based on like an experience that she had. I don't know. I think that I guess I'm just not one of those people who purposely reads books. Like I never read The Fault in Our Stars or You Before Me or Me Before You or whatever that one was called. Like I don't read the books where somebody dies. Like, that's just not my. I think like I get too many feels, and it like genuinely depresses me.
Yeah.
And like it disrupted my sleep. Like I was like, this is not what I want. I do not read for this. Like I read to escape the overwhelming feels that I have. And like, so I don't know. I guess there's different reasons that people read. And maybe this is for the people who read to like help them express themselves or help them feel the feelings, or I don't know. But for me, I'm more of an escapist reader. And this is, I wouldn't recommend this for people who are escapist readers.
I will say on that note that I thought that Finch's character was really well written. Like I feel like I've never understood somebody or in a strange way been able to relate to somebody as much as I really could with his character, because I'm not saying that I'm bipolar because I'm not, but like there's that desperation that he feels that she captures so well, and like the unseen and the just like the overwhelm and just like the want to crawl into the closet and just like hide from the world, and like all of the things that people feel, but times 1,000, because Finch is going like this through the the roller coaster through the whole story. And I just think that he was, aside from making me feel something for him, she also made him very witty and smart and lovable, which I don't feel that connection with Violet.
No.
But with him, I think she did a really good job. And I say props to her for making me root
care
for
about
him,
someone who died.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I thought he was a very witty, deep, complex character, and I just wanted the best for him, and I was so upset that nobody would go to bat for him, and I was actually kind of surprised that he killed himself. Not, again, maybe that's naive, but for the book, I guess because I'm in the book world, I'm like, I expect a happily ever after, and that clearly was not the case. I was not expecting that. But I really wanted him. He'd been through so much his whole life. I really wanted him to get something nice, to have something nice, to feel loved, and not even Violet, who his connection to was very strong, was enough. So that made me sad.
And that's like, I think for me, like I would prefer a version of this book where it ends with a more hopeful outlook in terms of him and this character that we grow to care about so much, because we see so much of his inner feelings and stuff. And I don't know, I guess I personally, if I had known, I wouldn't choose to read a book that is just it. Like, I don't read literary fiction. I don't read ambiguous endings. Like, that's not my, I don't like to read or even watch. Maybe that makes me sound really basic, but I don't like to have the like books that haunt me or stories that haunt me for, weeks or months, or like Requiem for a Dream, for example, as a movie. Have you seen that?
No, but I know it's
about opiates and heroin and addiction.
That's exactly why I've never seen it.
It is a haunting movie. I mean, like, it is just like, even now, sometimes I just like think about it. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But most of the books that you have to read in high school, I mean, a lot of them, it's just not my kind of thing. And I know that. And so I feel like any of my critical speaking about this book is all about personal preference and not about me saying that I don't think it was well written or was like a good book for people who like that kind of thing.
But I was just like, I wanted to point that out, because as much as I was totally depressed listening and watching, it was the book itself. Wouldn't say the movie's that great, honestly, in my opinion. But the book, if you really want to like a fucking punch to the stomach, then you should read it, because you'll get one. And she did a really good job. So,
she will.
Now that we've spoiled the entire thing for you, you should totally read it.
She really manipulates your emotions.
But it is worth it to see Violet and Finch's journey together. I think it's really amazing how she wrote that, and the things she came up with of how they could experience different parts of Indiana together, and like the really cool things they do were really awesome. And
those were fun.
I think that it's worth it to read that. If you're up for depressing, heart-wrenching stories, then I would actually very much recommend this book.
So like I mean, I know I want to go back to the blurb for the book, which was what did it say? It said something that it's a love story. I wouldn't call this a love story. I would say that there are people who fall in love in the story, but I would not call this a love story. I feel like to be called a love story implies that it's a romance, and to be a romance, there has to be at least a happy for now, if not a happily ever after. Those are like rules in the genre. And so maybe that's how they get by calling it a love story instead of a romance. But I don't know.
You know what? if you have seen A Star is Born.
Oh my God, there's Lady another Gaga. One.
If you've seen that and you enjoy that, I mean, I did enjoy that movie. I cried my fucking eyes out.
But I didn't. That was another one where I had no idea. Adam, my husband, he was like, when we finished, I was like, I didn't know that was gonna. I had no idea that's where this was going.
Yeah, I was like, it's on par with that as far as like you enjoy the story as you're reading it. You're like, oh yeah, and then you're like happy ending. You're like, oh fuck no, yeah, it's a horrible, sad ending. So it's like that. Yeah.
And I think maybe that's part of my naivety, like going into this, like expecting it to all get turned around and end up like happy.
It's because we write and we read romance. That's why. And you have to have happily ever afters.
Yeah.
Or like you said, happily.
Or like even like in our post-apocalyptic books, we always try to like hope. Like that was like our theme was like hope, even in the worst of times.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but in all fairness, this is not that genre. So
I know.
Clearly read out. So we're like, oh, we're gonna read like, a YA. It's gonna be easy, light reading.
So we were we were thinking this is like a YA romance, YA rom-com, like, you know, like To All the Boys That I Have Loved, like that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
All the other Netflix adaptations that they've done that were YA. The Kissing Booth, like that kind of thing. I love that. But and don't even The Kissing Booth, like
wait, how would that ever happen?
How would that ever happen at a school these days? That Kissing Booth where there's like the kids paying to make out with somebody.
Can we like
I really like.
I forgot that was a book. Can we read the book? I want to watch the
movie again,
but I want yes.
Oh. Well, we still have The Summer I Turned Pretty.
Okay, I'm just saying it's going on the list because I would love to compare. All right, moving
on. Okay, but anyway, would you categorize? So again, I did more than usual amount of reading and research afterwards, just to see what if other people were as I would say disturbed is how I felt. If other people were as disturbed by this book as I was, and a lot of people are really disturbed by it, although it has great ratings. So I guess there's like more people out there who like the books that tear out their hearts. Like, I don't know. But from what it was compared a lot to The Fault in Our Stars. I haven't read anything like this before, except I would say I read, and this is an adult book. This is, Jodi Picoult. And this is the only book of hers I've ever read. The Book of Two Ways, and I read it because it was the Book of Two Ways is an Egyptian Book of the Dead thing, but she's a death doula. It's very depressing. A death doula is somebody who helps the transition into death versus like a doula who welcomes the transition into birth. So that was the only thing that I had read that I could compare this to in terms of like the amount that it disturbed my life afterwards, and like how much it like put me into an actual funk of like not talking to my husband and just like zoning out and just being generally miserable. So anyway, but my point is, and have you read anything else like this? Would you categorize this as sick lit, which I didn't even know was a thing. Apparently it is. Books about people who are chronically ill or dying. Have you read any others like it?
I haven't. And I actually, that was when I saw your question, I was like, I didn't know sick lit was a thing. And my note was, I didn't know that was a thing, but if you mean emotionally gutting and dealing with all too real health issues and mental health, then yes.
I would categorize this as that.
Yeah, I would categorize this as sick lit. But no, I haven't. I purposely stayed away from the Fault in Our Stars because of that. And a few other things actually.
Did you read Me Before You or You Before Me or whatever that one was called?
I read it for book club. It was very good. And it was also sad. But yeah. Yeah, you can't save everyone, I guess, but it doesn't make it easier to read. That's for sure. Or watch in the movie, because then after I read the depressing book, I went and watched the damn movie. So, you know.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's good. It's
a
good story. It's just
I've read the summary. I know what happens. Yeah. I'm like, this is not for me.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, I actually forgot about that. I read that book years ago. So, but I don't know if I've read anything else like you. I'm not drawn to books like that unless it's something for like book club or whatever. So,
did you cry?
I didn't cry. I was shocked listening to the book because I was like, wait, he's really, am I
know in the chat when I was like, he's gonna come out, like he's gonna pop up, like whatever, he can hold his breath for a super long time, like we already know this. I kept expecting him to come up, and then she talks about them pulling out his body, and then she was like, she said it didn't even look like him. I was like, well, maybe it's not, maybe it's someone else. Like in my head I still was like, he's still
yep.
Yeah.
No. And then can I just say, and then the dad goes to the funeral and is crying, and I'm just like, oh my God, I just want to throw up.
Yeah, he was awful.
And he had like the scar that's like the size of his, like from his chest to his stomach from his dad abusing him, and his dad, like there's a couple of scenes in the book where his dad physically tries to hurt him, and he does it at one point, like he throws him across the room, and like hurts him. But most of the time Finch is just trying to get away, and he like goes up into his room, and I'm just sitting there going, and then this guy has the guts to fucking show up and just bawl at the so
anyway. And when they were out all night and her parents called his mom, and then she called his dad,
the abusive father.
I know, I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know. The whole, like, there were some things in there, like we were saying, that are just, they're maddening, and if anything, that's that would be the only reason why I wouldn't like recommend the book, is because there's just some, I don't know, like I wouldn't say, it's hard to say they're unrealistic, but a part of me is just like, really, you're gonna have two shitty parents that are that bad?
Yeah. Well, I also, in terms of unrealisticness, I feel like this is that genuine criticism that I have of the book, is that I feel like the characters, both Violet and Finch, suffer from a little bit of like Dawson's Creek-ism in terms of like the way that they talk and like their vocabulary and stuff. Like they sound very mature.
Yeah, for 17-year-olds.
Yeah. I was like, what?
Yeah, I can see that. I can totally see that. I love they said Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, no, it's like
bully. Oh my God. I tried to watch the first episode of that recently.
Rewatch?
And I was like, I cannot. Yeah, I cannot. This is so ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
Cannot. No, and they look like they're 35. There's no way I cannot do it.
Oh, that's excellent. Ugh. Okay, so we should get into talking about the adaptation.
Yes.
So there were many noticeable changes from the book to the adaptation. Were there any that you liked?
I liked the dad wasn't in it at all.
Yeah. And that we never met the mom until the funeral. That was good. So we didn't get to see her neglect.
I don't even remember, like, I don't even remember her in the funeral. I mean, I remember that scene, but
I just assumed it was her because she was sitting next to the sister.
Yeah, I really did like that, because that was just, and the thing about the book is the horrible father never got his comeuppance. None of that was ever resolved. He's still a horrible person who left his family, abused his son, and it's just horrible all the way around. So like the point of him was just maddening. Yes. And so I like that he was not in the story at all. That was the biggest thing that I put. There were less characters, which I thought was okay. He had, because he didn't have what's her name? Danica? No, what was her name? Decca. Oh,
for the Decca. Yeah, his little sister.
Yeah, so
didn't he only have 3 sisters in the book?
Yes, but he only had the one in the movie, which was helpful. Yeah. And there wasn't that whole other family and the stepbrother.
Yes. Yeah,
so that was kind of nice. There were less kids at school, less characters at school, which I thought was, I mean, it was fine, whatever.
Well, they combined like the Ryan,
and Reamer or whatever.
Romer,
yeah.
Reamer,
I don't remember his name, but yeah.
So who was like the bully? Romer was like the bully in the book, and Ryan was the Violet's boyfriend, ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
And it worked well to actually have them be combined into one person. I felt like
fine. I didn't mind. Yeah, it didn't take anything away from the story.
No.
But yeah, I think that's it. Like, as far as the other changes were things that I didn't particularly care for.
I will say, like, I liked the change from the very public bell tower opening scene,
which is weird at school. Like,
nobody's like, to the
during
bridge,
school, by the way,
during school hours,
which is also very strange.
Where they both were just standing at the top of this bell tower thinking about jumping, to and that not becoming like a huge freaking deal with the school.
It wasn't even talked about. Nobody knew about it except for Finch and her, that he found her on the bridge in the movie.
So but that they changed the location of it to the bridge, I liked. I didn't like any of the other changes about that scene, but I liked that they changed the location and the like timing of it and that kind of thing, that it wasn't like this big public thing. But overall I felt like their characters were like really flat comparatively.
Yes. And one of the things I thought was so strange, like I was saying before, is the story is very much Violet and her journey and Finch and his journey. And it mostly ends with Violet, obviously, because like you said, Finch goes black and dark after like he commits suicide. Finch barely has a story in the movie. Like, it's all really about her, which to me, the book is the part that I really feel connected to in this actual book is Finch.
Yeah. So I feel like we're going to go into the not so good changes now. Which is that, like, I was like looking for it. I was like, let's see his like manic phase that he's in right now. And he just seemed like a cool dude. Like, he didn't, slightly eccentric, but it wasn't like
there was only one violent scene, and all he's known for in the movie is the violent outburst. It has nothing to do with any of his depression, any of his manic, bipolar, nothing.
And then
that is talked about.
And the other thing I didn't like about the movie that I felt like didn't depict the mental disorder that he has appropriately, and this is, I'm not an expert in bipolar disorder at all, but is that I don't remember when it was in the book, but that it's him staying out with Violet, his parents getting mad, or her parents getting mad, and then this seems to send him into like his dark phase. Whereas I feel like, and I could be very wrong, but I feel like a lot of these conditions, it's not necessarily like, it's chemicals in the brain. Like, it's not like you reacting to necessarily something that is happening outside all that much. Like,
I don't know.
There's not like a direct cause. And this just felt very much like they made it seem more like in the movie,
it was their fault.
It made it seem more like it was like teenager angst and less like he genuinely has like a very extreme untreated like condition.
That's what I mean. The movie was maddening to the point where they didn't touch on any of his issues whatsoever. You don't even actually know why he's going and talking to the counselor. You don't actually know why the whole time.
He just seems like kind of a smart ass. Like, and I think that's the thing about that opening scene that really bothered me about the changes, besides the location, was that we didn't get any idea that he was
suicidal at
all, no. ever.
Nope. No, he didn't.
He like sort of briefly talks about his dark moods a little bit to Violet.
And that one time he's in the bathtub and he's holding his breath. But other than that, like that, even that was like nothing. If without context of him trying to see how long he can like last, like I guess it does. There's one point where he drives into the garage. He doesn't do anything, but then he pulls back out again. Like in the book, doesn't he actually like start to try and kill himself and then?
You mean when he parks in the garage?
Yeah, but then
I thought that was when he dropped off Violet after they were out all night, right? I thought he was just really mad at himself and had a freak out.
I think, but what I'm saying is I think in the book, I think he actually was considering like killing himself.
Oh, I don't remember that.
I might be wrong, but I remember him something about carbon monoxide and, or is it dioxide? Anyway, whatever. Now I'm getting
monoxide.
Confused. I'm double. Yeah. So, but I thought I remembered, and maybe he was reflecting on some, in the book, he reflects on like these really famous people.
Yeah.
Who killed
Talks about like
so maybe that's what it was.
and like these
know.
people who kill themselves and
the quotes they left behind and the notes. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. So, but in the movie, it's just, there was so little about him and his actual anything that it felt so, it felt like he was, what's the word, like, I don't know, like not snubbed, but like he was totally underdeveloped and just like totally not the way he was written, and that made me sad.
It was like a different character basically who also kills himself. I mean,
and you would only know and be able to understand what he's doing if you read the book, because otherwise he just looks like he's overreacting.
This is nothing against the actor or anything. It just like the way that he was written for the movie does not convey his illness at all. Like if anything, he kind of seems well adjusted, like like self-aware. I was like, this is very strange and confusing for my brain. Until the point where he like kind of snaps and like, but then even then he's like, it doesn't feel as extreme. It doesn't feel nearly as extreme as when he paints his entire room blue and like retreats and like, I don't know.
Like going back to A Star Is Born, that is so gutting. I sobbed my eyes out. I don't have to read anything. Like it portrays very clearly in that movie what's happening, why he's doing it, that he's on the mend, and you're like, no, don't do it. Like it's so many things. Like you have so many feelings, and then he fucking kills himself. And then when you go and you watch this movie and you're like, I don't really understand what's happening. So it just feels muddled compared to like if being able to like really
I feel like if I hadn't read the book, I would have been confused at the ending. Like, wait, did he die?
And why? Why exactly?
Like, what did he like hit his head on a rock? Like, what happened? So, yeah, I feel like they really missed the mark with his character in the movie. So, yeah.
Maybe they were trying to make it more YA for the movie. I don't know. Maybe they were trying to make it not so, because it's super adult themes, like really morbid, really. And disturbing, like you said. So it might be totally factual.
Like they were trying to make it a lighthearted movie about suicide.
I don't know. But again, we only know from her, and she was only thinking about committing suicide that one time because it was her sister's.
And she's all better now. Another thing I really disliked about the change was how brief the after part was, after his suicide from her perspective. Like in the book, she has
like
4 more wanderings,
2 hours left. Yeah.
It was like very bizarre to me in the movie. Again, I would have been like, what is going on? It's like goes from the paramedics coming to the lake, the funeral, and then the next scene is the funeral. And then it's like the next scene is like her moving on, her like, she goes
in front of the class, right, and reading the thing.
And her like presentation that she does about what they did, and like her reflecting on her time with Finch and stuff. I'm like, this is just strange. Like that I don't know. I just felt like it was very unrealistic in terms of the way that it was depicted in the movie versus the way that she deals with it. I cannot imagine somebody dealing with their extremely heavy emotions and traumatized emotions after this by presenting about it to their high school class.
Yeah.
Whereas in the book, it feels so much more realistic in the book. She withdraws, she goes on the final wanderings on the map. It's very much soul searching for her. She spends a lot of time with herself. Just coming to terms with what happened. To me, that was so much more realistic than this like presentation to a class. I was like, this is like, I understand that you need to convey to the audience, but I feel like they could have shown that versus hurt. I mean, it was like a literal depiction of showing versus telling. And they just had her tell.
Yeah.
Instead of showing.
That is true.
I don't know. That really, really bothered me. And then they go into her like dancing with his friends and stuff. Like, I was like, so we don't get to see any of her dark emotions after what happened. That really bothered me, that we didn't get to see her journey afterwards.
Yeah, and I can understand that.
Which we did see in the book and was done really, really well.
Yeah, I remember a scene where she's talking with the counselor, Embry, and she's sitting there and she's feeling all this guilt, and then he's talking about, I could have done more, and she was like, I think it was just a thought, but she was like, you can't blame yourself. I blame myself. Like, and then it was like this whole inner monologue of like her guilt and everything, and how he was actually came to terms with like, I should have done more. I should have helped him more. And like that, I remember really thinking, yeah, the fucking counselor should have done more. I'm glad he feels bad,
I would say another one that this is like, which is, I don't believe this was a book, but I know tons of people watched this, which was 13 Reasons Why.
I haven't seen that.
Oh,
I know it's sad. I didn't.
It is sad, but it was real. I thought it was really good, actually. That one didn't bother me as much as this.
But it reminds you
at the beginning, but at the beginning, it's up front.
So it's herself. There's no happy ending.
Yeah, she kills herself. And then it like kind of goes back through. Each episode is one of her tapes of the 13 reasons why she did it, which most of them are people. And it goes through her story from beginning to suicide with that reason or person.
Yeah.
And so you know where it's going. And then you like slowly put the pieces together through the 13 episodes. So this, that's the other thing that this made me think of. So I did want to, before we wrap up, I wanted to how did you feel about the casting, first of all? Because I read that Elle Fanning, who plays Violet, is who she had in her mind when she was writing. First off, I know you're not a huge fan.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know how I feel about Elle Fanning. I do like her in The Great. I like her in very few things, though. Very, very few. I think I didn't hate her in the, and I don't want to say hate, because I don't care that much, guys, but I'm just like, like it didn't bother me so much in this, because she wasn't like smiling and like simpering the whole time.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I didn't love her, but I didn't like dislike her or anything. I think she did a decent job. Again, wasn't a huge Violet fan to begin with, so I didn't have any real high expectations. I think Finch was cast really well. And in my head, I don't really know what I had pictured or thought of him. So I guess that's why maybe I thought it was great, because I think the actor did a really good job. Yeah. I wish they would have let him do more with the character.
Oh,
obviously.
Yeah. And relating to his character, I wish that they had included his phases that he goes through.
What do you mean?
In the book, he goes through his, like, for a couple weeks, he'll like put on a different persona.
Oh, yeah. I think the only thing that they did sort of alluding to that was when he was in the counselor, and they're like, oh, he's like, oh, so is this the grandma that died 4 other times? Like, I think that's the closest we got to that.
5.
Yeah, he's like, actually, she's died 5. She's a miracle.
She's a miracle.
Because of all of his lies and all the things he does. Like, they didn't really touch on any of that. All of his different personas that he has and whatnot.
Yeah. But. Like at the beginning of the book, he's like 80s Finch. And then he goes into like bad boy Finch. And then he just goes through these different. Okay.
In general,
yeah, I felt similarly to you. Okay, so I did want to, before we wrap up, go through, because I just thought I just felt like they missed the mark. And again, I'm clearly not the target audience for this one, based on how I have reacted to it. But I wanted to read some of the editorial quotes that they put after the blurb.
Oh, goodness.
And I'm just curious to see what you think of it.
Okay.
So there's 4. So one is a do not miss for fans of Eleanor and Park and The Fault in Our Stars, and basically anyone who can breathe. So they're saying that this book is for
everybody
everyone.
in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like,
no.
This book is definitely not for
That's
some people.
Very,
like this book could be very triggering for some people. It could be very damaging for some people.
For a lot of people. Yeah.
Like that is very irresponsible to say that.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Okay, so here's the next one.
I would be interesting though, because I haven't read A Fault in Our Stars. If they're comparing it to that, it makes me wonder if there's a lot of suicidal thoughts in that. If there's not, then it's, or maybe it's just
morbid because they
die.
They have terminal cancer.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't know, honestly. I don't even know if they both die. I don't know how it ends. I think one of them dies, or one of them who's not supposed to die is the one who dies, or something like that. I don't know. Okay, the next one. At the heart, a big one, of all the bright places lies a charming love story about this unlikely and endearing pair of broken teenagers. Again, that I don't feel like the love story is what this book was about. I feel like it was their journeys, their like side by side and together journeys.
Yeah,
I do not, and that they had a love, they fell in love during those journeys. I do not feel like this is a love story, and I feel hardcore about that.
Yeah. I think the problem with saying it's a love story is you're giving people hope that there's a happily ever after. Yeah. I think that's really the biggest problem with saying that it is a love story.
Yes.
Because I mean, there is a love story in it, but it's not a love story. Like it's about two, well, we've already said this, two very disturbed teens who are very like they suffer
working through mental illness, like I mean, and trauma, and like, and they fall in love. Like I feel like that can be added on. Like this is what it's about, and
but it saves nobody.
No,
it saves no one. Yeah.
So then the second two quotes are in that same vein. But so that one was from the New York Times Book Review. This is from the Wall Street Journal. A heartrending, stylish love story. Stylish. Apparently this is stylish now.
It's interesting because of these like big names, it makes me wonder, like, as indie authors, our ideas, like our genres are very different. We look at genres very differently than the trad people do. And so it makes me wonder if that's what all this is. This is all looking from, like a old school lens of, Romeo and Juliet was a love story. It was a fucking tragic love story. But nobody would be like, oh, we're going to go, if you want a good love story, go read Romeo and Juliet.
No way. And then, from 17 magazine, a complex love story that will bring all the feels.
So that to me is the most fitting, just because like it is complex. Like it is, I mean, it's very dumbed down, but it's that statement. But at least that even alludes to the fact that there's layers to this, like, I don't know.
I think I want to know. So like P.S. I Love You, which is actually, I haven't read the book, but it's a movie that I do like, although it is very sad. But it's all about hope. That movie is all about hope, that story.
Yeah. It's very sad, and her husband dies.
Yes.
In the very beginning.
At the very beginning.
But she finds love at the end.
Yes.
Yes. That
is, I think everybody knows with Romeo and Juliet that they die at the end. Like, I think
is it even considered a love story, or is it just tragedy? Like a tragedy?
It's called a tragedy.
Yeah, so it's not even really technically a love story.
No. I feel like for me to, I don't know. I like need this is a tragedy announced very clearly at the beginning. So that I'm not like holding out hope for something positive beyond Violet, like moving past her sister's death and now Finch's death. Like, just like some hope for these characters that we have grown to care about. That is my personal tastes and preferences. So, it's a heavy one. And it
really is
definitely haunted my dreams. So.
Well, and I think, I think a lot of people just to be fair, aren't going to go out and read this and then turn around and watch the movie. So we did ourselves a great service by reading and listening in the same week.
Yeah, really hammering it
that
in.
really did not help.
No.
But it's definitely like, if you enjoy stories like this, it is a well-written story, and I do recommend that.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
I agree. Going back to The Fault in Our Stars and the other ones that we mentioned that are not in my wheelhouse, but might be are definitely in a lot of other people's wheelhouses. So, yeah. It's just not mine. But yeah, I would definitely say that it was a well-crafted, well-written story, not a love story.
And I'm glad that you brought up that point about how the author, she wrote this because she's experienced some sort of loss, because the whole time I was listening to this, I was just like, man, this author, if she hasn't actually experienced this, like, what is going on in her head right now? Because it feels very close to home. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it feels very real. So yeah, makes sense.
So definitely gut-wrenching. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
I don't think so. Like I said, it is well written. So if you like stories like this, you should check it out. And sorry we spoiled it for you.
Not sorry. Okay, so thank you for listening, everyone. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode's links and book recs. I know LP had some good ones. And we will be back in a couple weeks to chat about our next book talk book, which is Thank You for Listening by Julia Whalen, who is not only one of my all-time favorite audiobook narrators, she is also one of my audiobook narrators. And she's a mega star in the audiobook world now. And she's amazing. And she narrates her own book, and
so we're excited to see how she writes.
Excited. Yes, I'm very excited. So if you're enjoying the show, we would love it if you left us a rating or a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen that allows for that sort of thing. And until next time, happy reading.
Happy reading adventures.
May your reading bring you joy.